Yo guys, what is up? Moxsy here with another Borderlands 3 video, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while, and that is a podcast style type of video slash show. Currently, we are live on Twitch, so we got the chat in here who are going to be asking questions at the end. We're just trying it out, doing it live. We'll see in the future if we want to do it pre-recorded. Or if we like live more. But yeah, I didn't want to do a podcast type video until I got my good mic. Now we have our beautiful Blue Yeti mic. So happy that you guys liked it. Making purchases to upgrade my setup is a no-brainer when you guys enjoy it and can see the improvement. So thank you for that. Really happy with our new mic. And with that, let's get into the podcast. So there's a lot to talk about Borderlands, and I think we'll break it up into... Thanks, Tyrene. I think we'll break it up into certain topics. I don't think I want to keep these too long, and so today, my idea for this segment is we're going to be talking about the Endgame today. We'll have a discussion at the end of the podcast with questions from our Twitch chat. So Twitch chat, save your questions for the end. And yeah, so we're going to go news, talk about the end game today, specifically the repetitiveness of the end game, what there is to improve, what's good right now. And then, yeah. So to start off, we're going to be talking about the patch notes that most recently hit on October 10th. These were just mainly character fixes and some weapon fixes. They fixed Amara's alacrity skill, so now she properly gets her reload speed off of it. If you have seen my videos, I almost never ever spec into this. It is now worth specing into. As an Amara player, that'll be something unique about this podcast, as we'll also talk about like real stuff. But alacrity is now providing the correct bonus. So in terms of like a boss killing build or using a phase zerker, putting a point into this is now going to be very rewarding. So we'll have some updated videos for builds on that. And the other Amara changes that they switched her phase grasp. Now can phase grasp enemies from far away, which is super nice. Amazing quality of life for all of our builds. It helps out our sniper Amara build a ton. Before Sniper Amara wasn't very viable because you couldn't phase grasp an enemy if they were more than 20 feet away from you, which was really frustrating. It also helps out builds such as our Samsara build. The only time you'd go down with Samsara is if you didn't have an enemy phase grasp, and the only times I was dying when I was playing with it was when an enemy was too far away and I had to run at them to get close enough to phase grasp them. And now we can phase grasp practically across the map. It's such a great quality of life for Amara. Besides that, no nerfs to Amara. We're still rocking pretty. Still doing the most damage. So yeah, Amara's still. They haven't found my channel yet, which is great. Mo's got some nerfs to her Bloodletter class mod. If you guys haven't seen Mo's Bloodletter class mod and the synergies with that. Basically, she was able to throw grenades to regen her shield. This wasn't intended, I guess, is kind of the way that they're marking it, or they didn't want it to be such an automatic regen to her shield. So they have nerfed that. They reverted the changes to her infinite grenade builds. Her infinite grenade builds, as they said, they are going to address it in a future patch. But for now, they removed the retrigger delay on it. The retrigger delay was her infinite grenade build was being able to be used because of splash damage was returning grenades to her. They put a delay on that, which didn't really affect her damage or her ability to get more grenades, because she could just pick up grenades from enemies that she was killing. But yeah, they said that was affecting other builds, so they removed it and are going to address it in the future. Flak is actually, in the first patch in a while, is actually getting some love. Flak is they changed the Flak's Leave No Trace ability. Not a big Flak player myself, as you guys know, but the biggest change to that is they were nerfing his ability to keep getting bullets back instantly while shooting. They nerfed that and reverted that nerf, so he should still be able to hit crits and return ammo to his magazine. So that is nice. I'm not sure. There's a lot of debate with people in this game right now about what Gearbox should be focusing on. I am in the train that some things do need to get patched and fixed. There are characters, like, it's no fun to be playing in multiplayer games where, like, one character is just super broken. And I think part of the balancing that they're doing is because of upcoming things that they want to do. We'll talk about this more in our Endgame section, but right now, there isn't that much. To be frank, there really isn't any reason to play with any other people. You can, as any character, maybe not Zane, solo any content in the game very easily. Endgame, Mayhem 3, no matter what you want to do, you can do it. So I think some of these character changes are for future things, so that the characters are more evenly balanced. But in a game like Borderlands 3, where half the fun is breaking things, it is upsetting to, for example, make a build and see it changed because it's too powerful, but half the fun is coming up in this game is coming up with powerful things to do, and like breaking the game. That's like kind of where my channel started. So it is interesting. I think that there's a lot of other things that Gearbox should be focusing on more than nerfing characters and weapons. But yeah, that's just my opinion. And everything I'm saying about Borderlands is coming from a place of love. Like, I don't want to come off as a person that, like, doesn't like this game or, like, hates on it or is, like, unsatisfied. Borderlands is my favorite franchise. My phone background is Borderlands. Like, I was waiting for this game for forever. I'm really happy with it, and the only reason I have opinions on this game is because I care so much about it, and I want it to be enjoyable for as long as Borderlands 2 was. That is the place where I'm coming from. So if I'm saying things that I want in the game or saying things I don't like, it's not because I'm a hater, it's just because I'm passionate. Lastly, for the fixes, they fixed Zane's Death Follow closely ability, so now it should be updating his kill skills. I am doing a current playthrough on Zane. Unfortunately, Zane playthroughs aren't very fun to watch, so I've been trying to fit it in my free time, which I don't really have much of. But playing Zane, I like him. The gadgety type things never, like, been super my thing. I've always been more like elemental, like wizardy kind of stuff. Like, that's why I picked Amara. But once they fix Zane's abilities, the most frustrating thing, and the thing that I agree with fixing and nerfing and patching, is if abilities aren't doing what they say. Abilities should do what they say, regardless of, like, having abilities come out in a polished game that took 6 years is unacceptable. Skills should work the way that they should. I understand, like, weird skill interactions not working or working that they, like, didn't foresee happening because there's so many, like, items in this game. But, like, just base skills not working the way that they should is unacceptable, in my opinion. It isn't that hard to see if something provides reload speed when it doesn't, you know? So, that's my take on that. Let's segue into our bit on the endgame. So, this is me currently playing the endgame. I'm farming a vault boss, and this is currently about all there is to do in this game. Not that I don't love finding new and fun ways to melt. Oh, hello, elemental projector. If you guys know me, you know I really like these things. At the moment, we are podcasting, and I'm not going to be doing giveaways, so unfortunately, I will have to leave that at the moment. But elemental projectors are something that are really, really crazy in this game. I don't think Gearbox intended us to use them the way that we've been using. I would like to think that I kind of pioneered the sellout elemental projector strategy. I was the first one to post about it, but it is kind of taken over the game as the best way to kill any bosses. But yeah, the end game is getting stale, and that hurts me so much to say. And the reason that hurts me so much to say, and I know that the game has only been out for a few weeks, you know, I know that it's only been out for a few weeks, but this isn't a like game as a service kind of type thing. Like, the whole package should be included at release is what you're expecting from Borderlands. Now, I know Borderlands 2, there was a lot more added after the game released. They added OP levels. They added the raid on Digistruct Peak. They added new raid bosses. But the fact that there isn't an invincible enemy in this game at launch, there isn't this one enemy, this one big bad enemy that you don't fight through your story, that you can only fight against after you beat the game, and it is an immense task where you can really show off a character. The fact that there isn't something like that blows my mind, because it was in Borderlands 2, made, 7-8 years ago? I remember when I first picked up Borderlands 2 and watching, I think it may have been the first team to beat Terramorphous, and it took them 8 hours to beat Terramorphous, of testing it and running it, and I should probably stop running into those green balls. Of literally a struggle to beat this enemy. They were the first people to beat it and got all the legendary loot, the Slayer of Terramorphous stuff. And that was a really cool experience, and it's just one of those Borderlands moments where you're your first time killing Terramorphous, or figuring out how to kill Terramorphous in under 5 minutes or 60 seconds. And there isn't that in this game. All the bosses that you can fight in this game are story bosses. And not only are they only story bosses, but they don't have designated drops. Most of them don't have specific drops. And that's something where I think the community is a little split on. So it's awesome that there is so many weapons in this game, that there's so much loot, and all the weapons sound different, they act different, they're unique, they're cool. But the fact that you can't grind out one boss and until you get one weapon is a huge detriment, in my opinion, to the end game. Here's the thing. So if you wanted to get a 94% sham in Borderlands 3 or Borderlands 2, you would farm the bunker. You would farm for that perfect piece of gear over and over and over again, and you wouldn't guaranteed the sham, but at least you knew what you were going for, and you know what you were going after. You had an objective and a goal and an endpoint, and there was only one boss that you could farm for that gear. Now you can throw a pretty much a dice at the wall, or dart at the wall, not a dice, and farm any endgame boss that you'd like, and you will get geared, there isn't any reason to farm Grave Ward besides that he doesn't have immune mechanics. And farming a boss for the sole reason that they don't have immune mechanics is silly in a game like this where Borderlands has come so far in terms of like the years that Borderlands 2 came out and the amount of games that have been out that are kind of in the same genre as Borderlands. For example, I don't want to compare Destiny and Borderlands, but you kind of have to, just because of, one, their similarities, and two, like, so when Borderlands 3 was announced and we knew it was coming out and we had all these promises of like what the end game was going to be or like how much end game there was, like, I was thinking they took the best part of Destiny that makes everyone love Destiny so much and then put the Borderlands formula into that and kept it 4-player, not massive multiplayer online. But the like Destiny raids and the end game and the like legendary quests to get certain weapons that all like greatly increase the amount of time that you can put into the game. I was like almost 100% confident that that was going to be in this game. Why wouldn't it be? Why would they? Because they're clearly taking parts of Destiny's formula and using it. Destiny's clearly had somewhat of an influence on this game, but in my opinion, the best parts of Destiny were for some reason left out. There isn't any real reason to play with friends. There isn't any boss that you have to play with a friend versus like Destiny raids and their quest to get legendary weapons. Like, for example, if you guys are Destiny players, like getting the I forget that black sniper rifle that was really OP. You had to do like a time trial and your character had to be well geared and you had to complete it in a certain amount of time. Like something like that in Proving Grounds, where you had to beat Proving Grounds in like under 3 minutes. And you had to have a team and the enemies got crazy difficult, but if you could beat it, you would get a guaranteed legendary or something like that. Something like that would add so much to the end game. If Tyreen wouldn't go down or wouldn't stay down for you to damage her unless you had like 2 players like on top of her back, and those 2 players had to be doing enough damage to keep her down while the 1 player shot at her head. Something like that where the fight would get longer and there was a reason to be playing together, I think would add a lot. Tyreen is the only boss with a real like kind of mechanic, I would say, to her. And that mechanic is just overshadowed by you don't have to jump on top of her. You can literally just shoot her from a different angle and hit that same spot. And I think part of the reason for this is because Borderlands is different in Destiny, that a lot of people that play Borderlands want to be able to play it alone. You know? Borderlands is different than Destiny because players want to be able to play it alone. But at the same time, part of the reason why I got so into Borderlands is because Borderlands' co-op was so amazing. Borderlands 2, to this day, is still, I would say, the best co-op experience that you can have with a friend. You grab a controller, start playing Borderlands 2, and it is amazing. It is a game that I grew up playing with my sister, and we had the most fun playing split screen. And Borderlands 3, launched without split screen even being playable, is like a huge part of its identity just being lost. And I understand the aspect that people want to play. Some people want to play alone. Borderlands is as much of a single player game as it is a co-op game. But the co-op experience right now just isn't there. And the rewards for playing co-op aren't there. I'm level 50 on my Amara. If you guys are watching my videos, I've pretty much done everything that I needed to do on Amara. there isn't any content that I've needed to play within our character. I don't even know what playing with a level 50 Mose looks like, or playing with a level 50 Zane looks like. Everyone was talking about, like, when I was looking at these games, I was like, oh, what's going to be the best class for, like, split-screen play, or, like, in raids. Like, everyone was talking about, like, oh, like, for, like, raid bosses, or invincible enemies, like, Amara is going to be really great because she has Laid Bare that'll keep up that 25% increased damage to all enemies. There is no need for that. No one needs that plus 25% increased damage. You can one-shot. There isn't an enemy that requires teamwork. You know, even if it doesn't, even if it is just a sponge, you know, even if the enemy is just a sponge and there is no cooperative mechanics, you could still solo it by yourself, which is important to be able to solo bosses. But there isn't any co-op mechanics. There isn't any reason to take on a boss fight with friends. You know, like you guys are watching me kill the best endgame boss farm right now, and like I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a little silly. And here's what I'll say is that obviously they're going to have invincible enemies. They're going to have their, like, raid bosses, their Terramorphoses, their Master G's. I don't doubt that those are going to be in the game. In fact, this special event, this like weekly event thing that's going on right now, is I'm putting my money on it right now that by the end of this event, the last portion is going to be Vermivorous. That they're going to release Vermivorous probably within a week. So that's cool. That's awesome. Super hyped for that. That's going to be a lot of fun to do, and I'm really excited to do it. It's just bizarre to me that isn't available out of the box, like at launch. It's just strange for me, you know. So obviously there's going to be improvements. Obviously this game's going to change a lot, just like Borderlands 2 changed. It's just like, for me as a streamer's making content, and oh, that was a bullet ricochet. As someone who's making content and stuff, like, when people come in and they've never seen Borderlands 3 before, they come into my stream and they're like, why are you doing this? Why are you killing this enemy on repeat? Like, is this all this game is? Like, what's the end game like? I'm like, yeah, like, this is pretty much the end game. Yes, if you're a completionist, there are obviously things to do. This game is huge. There's a lot of quests to do. There's a lot of unique enemies. There's a lot of bosses to fight. But the why of why you would go fight them, why would you go seek out these enemies, is less there than it was in Borderlands 2. And part of that is because of the lack of dedicated drops. If you had every single boss in this game have one unique item that they dropped and they had a small chance of dropping, and then they had world drops. So every boss could have a world drop, right? Every boss can world drop, but they all had one gun that they could drop, and that chance of that gun dropping was less than the world drops, and you would grind that boss. You'd get lots of legendaries for doing it. You would still get rewarded for your time playing, but if you killed him enough, you would have that chance of getting his unique legendary boss weapon. Boom, endgame. So many more hours than me just killing Graveward and getting all the gear that I could ever need, you know? If you had each story boss, each side boss, I mean, there are side bosses, there are unique enemies. We're going through a rare spawn event right now where there are unique things dropping from these enemies, but in my opinion, it's not enough, and it's too easy too. I don't think I've had to work for a single drop in this game, and I obviously understand that it's down to luck, and many people aren't as lucky as me or don't have enough time to play as me. Obviously, I am an outcast because I play this game a lot. Now, this has become what I do. But in terms of like farming for specific gear, it's less rewarding because when you do get a perfect piece of gear, it's not like, oh, I worked my butt off and now I finally got this. It's like, oh, I just got really lucky and I got the perfect piece of gear when I wasn't looking for it, what I wasn't intending. I didn't even know I wanted this, but now I have it. Versus like, I really want this item from Grave Ward, and I'm going to farm until I get the anointed version of this specific item, and because Grave Ward drops it, I know that if I put in the work, I can get that item. And world drops are great, but dedicated drops are better. Dedicated drops were part of Borderlands' identity, and I think this game has lost some of that, and in losing that has lost a substantial part of its endgame. Proving Grounds are cool. I don't know if you guys have completed Proving Grounds in the challenges that you needed to do, but they're just not rewarding enough. You can beat them pretty easily. You get right through Proving Grounds. You get to the chest, and it's like blues and greens and like some purples if you're like on your luck game, you know. There should be like if you have like different items that could drop from Proving Grounds, or like a different rarity. They had more rarities in Borderlands 2. Obviously, I'm sure they're gonna add more rarities. It'll be DLC or free update or whatever. But you know, a bazillion guns and like 5 rarities, like obviously they don't need to include that at time. They need to have something to add on to. But I don't know. It just feels like when you hit level 50, if you have some gear and you have a solid build, you can hop right into Mayhem 3 and like not really have much of an issue. Like when I heard that they were doing like these, I'm a big Diablo player. I played a lot of Diablo. Diablo was actually a game that I never would have played until I played Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 left me with this itch basically for this kind of game, and Diablo satisfied that itch. I think I've died from these blue balls every single time. Sorry about that. There was... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, Mayhem 3 loot and the integration into Mayhem 3. If you remember, if you guys played Diablo has like a system in play where basically, let's say you did a Proving Grounds run, kind of like a Rift in Diablo, where based on how fast you did it or how many enemies you could kill, you would get a scaled difficulty. So the faster you could kill the enemies, the faster the faster you killed the enemies, the higher the scaling would be for when you went into something else. So in like Diablo, you would get into a rift, and however many levels you could clear, you would get like a stone or whatever, and then that high level stone, because you killed things so fast and were so good, you could bump up the difficulty. And obviously there was like more rewards with bumping up the difficulty, but imagine if like Proving Grounds, if like there was something where you could just like spawn in, have a ton of difficult enemies in, and the further you could go in it, or the more rounds, you would get something that would like boost your Mayhem modifier up to 10, till Mayhem 10. And it wouldn't be like a set thing with Mayhem 10. It would just be like, oh, like the enemies are now going to have plus 400% health. Like, oh, you won't one-shot Grave Ward anymore, even with this stuff. And this stuff could get added in, but like when they said the Mayhem modes, I pictured like, 1, actual Mayhem things, and 2, this kind of like infinite scalability, which would be really cool. Very tough to implement in a game like Borderlands, but like it's an idea that I think could go a long way if it's something that they're trying to pursue. Don't even get me started on Mayhem Modifiers, because we'll talk a little bit about Mayhem Modifiers. Well, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more in another episode, but the Mayhem Modifiers are the current substitute for OP levels. OP levels, OP levels were really hard. They were very difficult to get into. You really had to work. If you were going to do it legit without glitching, to get legit OP8 was a real hard challenge. And it took a lot of time to do. And doing it legit was a huge accomplishment. And then being able to kill things on OP8 without, like, ridiculous exploits or, like Salvador. Salvador is basically an exploit in of itself. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll add OP8 levels. I'm sure the endgame is going to improve, but Mayhem 3 doesn't offer that same kind of consistency and difficulty. Like, picture this. Imagine you had to work to get into Mayhem 1. You had to work to get into Mayhem 2. You had to work to get into Mayhem 3. Instead of just, like, walking up to the machine and whatever and just, like, picking your difficulty. That in itself, the trial to get up to Mayhem 3 could have been a huge endgame activity, you know? You could have had people doing, like, LFG runs, like, helping people get into Mayhem 3. That's a huge lost opportunity for them for, like, an endgame activity, is you could finish the story, but, like, you know what, I want to go into the hardest difficulty possible. And if you have a Bloodletter class mod, or if you're spec'd into Samsara, who gives a hell? You can do whatever you want, you know? The Mayhem modifiers in of themselves definitely need some work. One, if you've seen my other episodes, you know that they don't work as intended. Two, they're not fun gameplay mechanics. It's not fun just to straight up lose damage and straight up gain a ton of damage. It's fun to make things crazy, to give enemies more movement speed, to make them have all rocket launchers, to have only one type of enemy spawn in a certain area. There's so many more things that they could have done than, oh, here you lose damage, here you get damage. And I hope they change that. I really do. And lastly, just looked at my chat, but the OP levels were really hard. They were really difficult, but that's part of the fun in this game, is just testing yourself. It's giving difficulty inspires better builds, better thought processes, better creation of stuff, and more difficulty inspires playing cooperatively. Amara would be an absolutely amazing character, or is an amazing character to play cooperatively because of her CC and her like team abilities. And I was super excited to play her as like a supporting role when I first started playing her. But after my story playthrough, there's no need for cooperative play, you know? So yeah, that was the end of my endgame rant. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be looking at chat right now for questions. So if you have some questions and you want to ask, please post them in just one portion of text, and I'll get to the first 3 or 5 that catch my eye. Okay, so Nomad says, we can imagine that the end game of this game is not here yet, but when the level cap will rise and the DLC will get another game. True. So, yes, there's going to be additional content coming, and that's obviously going to improve the amount of playability there is by adding content into the game. My issue is that the content that released with the game isn't... Not that Borderlands 3 isn't a great game, it just isn't what I expected it to be. Not that they had to like meet every one of my expectations. It's just that it almost feels like a what's the right word? a step down from Borderlands 2 in some ways. That's my biggest issue. My biggest issue isn't that they're not gonna add more and it's not gonna improve. My biggest issue is that straight up Borderlands 2 had a better endgame at launch. That's all. There was an endgame there. There was farmable things to do. There was difficult tasks to be done. There was a more interesting story. We'll talk about story another time, but straight up, like, there was just straight up more endgame. And the fact that, like, games like Destiny and, like, The Division and things like that in the same genre have come out with an endgame that had new ideas, and Borderlands didn't really take any of those new ideas, is shocking to me. Let's see what the other questions. How has my experience been with the recent in-game events? The rare spawn, the boss event. The rare spawn event is cool. The only thing about the rare spawn event is that the work that you need to put in this game to get your items is already low. It's already low. You can get geared from killing one boss, and these rare spawn enemies have cool items that they drop. And the fact that now I basically got all of my items that I needed by killing each of them one time. I traveled to where they were. I killed them. I got the item that I wanted. First try, unless you're going for an anointed. Cool idea, but it's just still unsatisfying, you know? It's there. Right now, the people's issue in having, like, an enjoyable time on the game isn't that they're not getting enough loot. The loot is plentiful. The game has a lot of guns. It's that the work and that the specific, like, hunt, like, the hunt for, like, the legendaries isn't great. And anointeds are cool. Anointeds are, like, a super, super great addition to this game. Anointments are awesome. They add a lot to the game and a lot more to farm for, but it's just like a thing of, like, you're not hunting for it. Like, if you could bump up the difficulty really, really difficult, or if there was one endgame event where you were, like, guaranteed an anointment, or had a better chance, or if you couldn't get an anointment from, like, certain things or something, that would be different. Or if you could only get anointments on True Vault Hunter mode, you know? Like, True Vault Hunter mode's identity has almost been lost, just because, like, there isn't that much point of playing True Vault Hunter mode. Alright, what else we got? Space, what are my hopes for the DLC content? My hopes for the DLC content are kind of what I've been hoping, what I've been ranting about is my hopes for the end game. Whatever they want to do, new characters, new skill trees, it's all good with me as long as they're interesting. I just hope for more difficult endgame activities with some good storyline, and a reason to do them. If an endgame DLC comes out, or a DLC comes out, and there's no reason to do it, you'd be better off farming Graveward, then I'll be really disappointed, you know? But if the endgames are difficult, they're challenging, they require people to play together, not require, but my first time hopping into one of these, whatever their endgame DLC is going to be, my first time hopping into the Vermivorous fight or whatever, if I one-shot Vermivorous, or if I kill him in 2 seconds, I'm just going to be so, like, disappointed, you know? That's not, Vermivorous was so hard to kill, you know? So, like, if it's that, then that I won't be happy. Do I reckon they're going to add Pearlescence? I'm sure they're going to add Pearlescence, or at least something of this sort. Do I think they're going to nerf Amara in the future? Here's the thing. Amara doesn't have a crazy skill tree. Amara's skill tree is good. It's not... Her bonuses in her skill tree aren't amazing. You know, they're very, very reasonable. her skill tree in itself isn't that amazing. Right now, what is amazing about Amara are her anointments and her synergies, and some of the items like a elemental projector. I could easily see them nerfing elemental projectors, and I could easily see them nerfing Amara's like 300% anointment. I would be surprised if that 300% anointment stuck around for a super long time. I think that's going to be something that gets nerfed. But I don't think they're going to touch her skill tree, because her skill tree to me feels balanced. The things that kind of make her crazy are her anointments and things like artifacts and stuff that we can abuse. Also, Space End, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub, man. Appreciate that. How do I feel about the huge variety in the class mods? The different points you can spend and get, and 3 different gray stats you get. I feel like it's not worth it to farm for the perfect legendary class mod because the stats are random. It's the skills with the given random points, and it's world drop, which makes it so unfun. This question is from North Bacon. North Bacon, thank you for the question. So yeah, another thing that I have an issue with is the diversity in the class mods. To me, it just doesn't feel like the legendary class mods were that thought out. It doesn't feel like they really put that much thought into what they wanted the legendary class mods to be, and what the legendary class mods playstyle they wanted it to do. At least for Amara, I obviously have less experience playing with other characters, but in Borderlands 2, your class mod kind of dictated your playstyle, which is a good and a bad thing, right? Yes, there are class mods that do that. You have a clear like melee class mod for Amara, and the solitary breaker or breaker class mod boosts things like melee damage. So clearly a melee thing. The random stats are a little strange, but I do like the random stats in that in Borderlands 2, basically finding a duplicate legendary class mod didn't do you anything. Like, your sights may be like 1 or 2 points different, but it is cool that you can farm the same legendary class mod and get improvements and like get the perfect legendary class mod. So I do like that. My issue with the legendary class mods is the legendary things that they do, like the phase zerkers, weapon damage, and action skill cooldown rate. Obviously very nice, obviously very cool. I like that. I like the breaker class mod. The other class mods are where it's like, what were they thinking with this? Like, in what world would I use the Nimbus over the phase zerker? We will have a Nimbus build actually coming out real soon, but it's just like, I think part of the specific like buffs on things created specific playstyles, which was fun. The legendary class mods for Amara right now, I feel like there's probably 2 that are good. The rest are just like, I don't understand why I would be using this, why I should use this, or this just doesn't promote a new interesting playstyle for me. Hoodie wants to know if I want to see them add a like raid style like Destiny. I was just talking like this about this. I would love to see a raid style Destiny. I would love to see something that revolved around communication and character skills. Destiny raids are super fun. They are an incredible fun event to watch, to be partake in. They're very satisfying, and I think they would fit very well in the Borderlands universe. I don't think there could be anything bad about the raids, as long as it's not just DPS tests for everything. As long as there are some cool things. That's what it's missing right now. Some like mechanics, some boss mechanics. They could definitely add some boss mechanics if they're going to do something like that. Alright, we'll take one more question. Yes, we definitely need more inventory space. The fact that there's like crazy low inventory space is really frustrating, and like shouldn't be a time sink in a game like this, is managing your inventory so much to make multiple characters and bring them to Sanctuary. All right. Last question is from Roski. Mox, what parts what you just talked about would you like to see added for free to the base game versus what we have to pay for in DLC? So, if I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but if I'm remembering this correctly, Borderlands 2's level caps were free, I believe. I think the OP8 might have been a paid DLC. I think the 50 to 61 was free. Then the story DLCs were all paid. It's Borderlands 3 is a game where, in like a world of microtransactions, there are none in Borderlands. It's a godsend. Thank you for not putting microtransactions in this game. People will pay for good content in this game. I think things like level cap increases don't need to cost money. I think additions of new weapons and stuff don't need to cost money. I think their idea with the new... We'll talk more in our time about, like, and when it happens, the upcoming, like, Halloween event. Those events are super cool. So awesome that they're free. I would definitely pay for, like, a more substantial event. But the fact that we have a seasonal event, which we had seasonal events in Borderlands 2, but they were called Headhunter Packs, and they cost money, and you could play them for 3 hours and beat them. The fact that we're having a free event is huge, and is a really good sign that we're, one, already having this free event of, like, their, like, boss week, Iridium thing. Obviously, there's improvements to be done there, but the fact that we're having, like, a new boss, new weapons, all going to be free, makes me really excited for what's going to come when they do release paid DLC. I really hope they do some great things with paid DLC. I was fortunate enough to be able to purchase the season pass, and the DLCs were so amazing in Borderlands 2 that I'm not too worried about it. My biggest issue is just the base game at release. That should be... You shouldn't have to say, oh, the DLC is going to make the game great. The game's great, but, like, I shouldn't have to say, like, I'm waiting for DLC to be any endgame for the complete full package game that they sold, you know? Alright, guys, that'll be the end of the podcast. Twitch stream, we're still going to be streaming, but I'm going to end the podcast segment right here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know this was a little bit of a longer one. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but if you stayed to the end and you listened, thank you so much. Really, genuinely honestly interested in everyone's opinions. I'm obviously here with a mic spewing mine. But if your opinions disagree, if you agree, or if you have a different take, let me know, because I am genuinely very interested. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. We'll be doing this. My plan is to do this Sunday night. Every Sunday night, once a week. We'll have a different topic each time. The timing should be... tonight I was a little late. We started at like 9, but hopefully like 8 o'clock, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be doing this again next Sunday. And yeah, peace.